Things between Governor Gavin Newsom in California and President Donald Trump are heating up. And it's not just because the entire area is on fire. The blazes continue to rage. And Gavin Newsom, his rage also continues. He's been lashing out at Donald Trump over the weekend. He's been telling people Donald Trump is spreading disinformation and misinformation about the fires. I'm not really sure that Gavin Newsom has a leg to stand on. And we've all seen the images. We've all heard everybody, pretty much everybody in California calling for his head, demanding that he resign or planning some kind of second recall election. Man, I'll tell you what, if you're a governor and you have 2 recall elections in your lifetime, you may want to think about going back to making wine, which is what he did before he destroyed the entire state of California. President Donald Trump was on Truth Social, and he was also pointing out how fallible the politicians in California have been when it comes to the fire mitigation and keeping people safe. He wrote, "The fires are still raging in LA. The incompetent Poles have no idea how to put them out. Thousands of magnificent houses are gone, and many more will soon be lost. There is death all over the place. This is one of the worst catastrophes in the history of our country. They just can't put out the fires. What's wrong with them?" And Gavin Newsom is not a big fan of Donald Trump criticizing him. He went on television and he did an interview where he basically lied to people about what was going on in California and lied to people about who was really responsible and lied to people about their preparedness for these fires when we all know they were totally caught off guard.
I don't know what he's referring to when he talks about the Delta smelt in reservoirs. The reservoirs are completely full, the state reservoirs here in Southern California. That mis and disinformation, I don't think advantages or aids any of us.
It doesn't advantage or aid anybody, except the misinformation and the disinformation isn't coming from President Donald Trump. The misinformation and the disinformation appears to be coming from none other than Gavin Newsom himself, because we've all seen the photos. We've had the Santa Ynez? Santa Ynez Reservoir right outside of Pacific Palisades. That thing was dry as a bone. It's been shut down. It's been shut down now for weeks because of maintenance. I mean, it's been empty. The water reservoir, which holds over 100 million gallons of water right next to the place that burned down entirely, has been empty and offline. And Gavin Newsom thinks that Donald Trump is spreading misinformation. It's really interesting to see what's happening in California and what Donald Trump is now going to be tasked with doing to rebuild it, because President Donald Trump is going to be president a week from now. We are 1 week away from the inauguration. And when President Trump becomes president, that means that this whole mess in California that Gavin Newsom has created, it now rests on his shoulders. And he's got to work with FEMA, and he's got to work with other people, and he's got to work with Congress, and he's got to make sure that there is some way for him to save these people in California from themselves, save them from their own horrible leadership, and federalizing the water system, federalizing some of these reserves and these deltas that he's talking about, and really coming in and dropping the hammer is probably the only way that Donald Trump's going to do it, not just because it's the right thing to do, but also because he's got to keep from these costly fires, raging in the future, so that the United States of America doesn't have to spend hundreds of millions of more of your tax dollars to fix a problem that was preventable had they had the right leadership to begin with. Donald Trump also may be planning a trip to visit California. There was a press conference with Mayor Bass, who, she's got her own problems. But Mayor Bass was asked about Donald Trump coming, and here's what she said about a potential trip from the future president.
Is the incoming president expected to come here?
I believe so. I mean, it was a positive response yesterday.
Yeah, I will say, knowing what I know, and I represent Altadena, which is probably the most diverse community that in the 5th District, this is the exact constituency that he was talking to. You've got socioeconomics from all walks of life, and they are suffering. So I am confident that this president will come.
Well, my conversation also yesterday was throwing around possible points of time.
Okay, so she's throwing around possible points of time, which I guess would be times that President Trump can come out to California and check out these wildfires and the devastation that, that these people have unleashed on their own citizenry. And that is something that would probably have to happen this week, because after the inauguration on Monday, look, Donald Trump's busy. There's the inauguration, then there's a parade, a bunch of balls he's got to get to. And then finally, he's got to, go back to the Oval Office and start signing executive orders to save our country from the last 4 years of Joe Biden. So we're not really sure when Donald Trump's going to be going out to see these wildfires, but they imagine it's going to be sometime soon. Something else that popped up is this meeting Donald Trump had with House Republicans, or not just House Republicans, but Senate Republicans, caucus leaders. House Republicans and Trump discussed tying California wildfire to the debt ceiling. This is something Donald Trump's been trying to get covered for a long time in order to continue with his agenda and his mandate, and in order to cut taxes on tips, for example, and Social Security. There needs to be some kind of, he really wanted the removal of the debt ceiling, but some kind of debt ceiling increase. And now with the California wildfires raging and the need for some kind of disaster relief, it looks like they may be tying the two together. Politico reports a group of House Republicans and President-elect Donald Trump talked about tying wildfire aid to a debt ceiling increase Sunday night as the fires spreading across huge swaths of Los Angeles are estimated to become one of the costliest natural disasters in U.S. history. Of the nearly 24 House Republicans who attended the Sunday dinner at Mar-a-Lago, where this option was discussed, several are caucus leaders and appropriators with major influence in upcoming budget reconciliation and government funding negotiations. Many Republicans also fear adding a debt ceiling increase to their major party line reconciliation package or border, energy, or tax policy will sink the massive bill given internal GOP division. So it'll be interesting to see if Donald Trump will be able to get the debt ceiling increase he's been wanting, if he ties it to the aid for the folks in California. That, of course, will be happening probably immediately after he takes office, as well as his confirmations, because the Senate confirmation hearings begin, I believe, today. And we're going to be looking at some of the folks that Donald Trump has selected for his cabinet, that he needs for his cabinet, that he wants for his cabinet, so that they can continue, so they can really start on day one, making America great again. Something else that happened over the weekend is that Jack Smith, the very bizarre looking and egomaniacal and quite, downright scary special counsel who was put in charge of the Donald Trump case in Florida and the top secret documents and all that other rigmarole, he resigned finally from the DOJ. Donald Trump celebrated on Truth Social, as he's prone to do, and he wrote, "Deranged Jack Smith was fired today by the DOJ." Jack Smith claims he quit, but 6-1. Here's the thing. If you're not going to quit, then you're going to get fired on Monday. So you might as well, I'll quit now before you fire me. He is a disgrace to himself, his family, and his country. After spending over $1 million on the witch hunt against Trump, he left town empty-handed. Man, that is a disgrace, not just to himself and his country, but also to his family. Jack Smith's family very upset with him for not doing really and spending $100 million. It's true. It was one of the most expensive, unnecessary, unconstitutional investigations I think we've had in our history. I'm not really a big study. I haven't really gone in depth into unconstitutional and unnecessary and expensive investigations, but I would imagine it's probably up there. As unnecessary and expensive and unconstitutional investigations go, I would have to say it's at least top 3. Depending. Donald Trump also said the stench of deranged Jack Smith and his thugs is gone. They were sent packing after spending over $100 million, destroying the lives of many people and families who will never be the same again. Deranged Jack Smith accomplished nothing except to show what complete losers my political opponents are. Which is just, I'm kind of sad that the political losers are all leaving town, because we won't get many Truth Social posts like that. We probably will. Let's be honest. We probably will. He also wrote about a report which Jack Smith's report was never released. And now that he's no longer a member of the DOJ or an employee of the DOJ, it may not get released. And of course, that's up to Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland, as the Attorney General, makes all of the decisions. You may remember this back from the Russian collusion case when it was Bob Mueller, the Mueller report. The Mueller report went to Bill Barr, and then Bill Barr had to decide whether or not he was going to release it, that kind of thing. Then it was all redacted, and then people were mad that it was just a bunch of black line, the whole thing. Well, Jack Smith's report is the same way. Jack Smith's report doesn't belong to Jack Smith. It belongs to the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice is headed up by the Attorney General. So Jack Smith gave his report to Merrick Garland, we have to assume, before he packed up his box of stuff and walked out the door. Now, Merrick Garland has the report, and Merrick Garland, I guess, could still release it, except that a court has ordered he can't. There's been an injunction put on it. But here's the deal. They still want, well, I guess he could release it to members of Congress and the Senate, but to make it public, that would require a battle in court because of the measures that Donald Trump and his people have put into place. And Donald Trump not even happy that this report, which he again believes is unconstitutional, bogus, has no merit, and was a huge waste of everyone's time. He doesn't want this report in the public at all. And it's not even really necessary anymore since, well, there's no more court case. Why would deranged Jack Smith, writes Donald Trump, be allowed to issue a report on a complete and total witch hunt against me strictly for political purposes when he was thrown off the case and ultimately dismissed by the DOJ? Therefore, to put it nicely, he was illegitimately involved in this political persecution, and all of the hundreds of millions of dollars spent by our hapless government were, simply put, wasted. He has already filled thousands of rejected statements and documents against me, which were a joke, and the public just voted for me in a landslide to be their president. So President Donald Trump does not want Jack Smith's report out there. In fact, the only people that would want it out there are Joe Biden and a handful of the Democrats. Here's the issue, though. You have a rift now in the Democrat Party between Joe Biden and Merrick Garland because Joe Biden publicly criticized his own Attorney General, Merrick Garland, for not going after Trump fast enough or hard enough and going after Hunter Biden too fast and too hard. So Joe Biden very upset with Merrick Garland and the DOJ because Merrick Garland didn't, in his opinion, use enough effort to prosecute Donald Trump in a speedy manner. And had he acted faster and harder, Donald Trump may have been in jail and not in the White House. So he's blaming Merrick Garland, passing the buck for that one. And then, of course, he's also upset that Hunter Biden totally got convicted. I mean, he didn't want Hunter Biden in trouble at all. That's why he became president of the United States, so he could protect himself and his family and his cohorts and his cronies from any and all of these prosecutions that, let's be honest, I mean, we're just scratching the surface when it comes to the corruption and criminality of the Democrat Party, especially Joe Biden, the Obamas, the Clintons, the Pelosi's, the whole lot of them. They needed Joe Biden to win this election. They needed Kamala Harris to win this election just so they could keep their skeletons firmly in the closet. And of course, well, that's not happening. They lost. They lost the election. Breitbart reports Special Counsel Jack Smith has resigned after submitting his Trump report. Special Counsel Jack Smith submitted his Trump report, Justice Department says. The department disclosed Smith's departure in a court filing Saturday, saying he had resigned one day earlier. The resignation, 10 days before Trump is inaugurated, follows the conclusion of two unsuccessful criminal prosecutions against Trump that were withdrawn following Trump's White House win in November. At issue now is the fate of a 2-volume report that Smith and his team had prepared about their twin investigations into Trump's efforts to overturn the results of his 2020 election and his hoarding of classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago estate. The Justice Department had been expected to make the document public in the final days of the Biden admin, but the Trump-appointed judge who presided over the classified documents case granted a defense request to at least temporarily halt its release. Two of Trump's co-defendants in that case, Trump valet Walt Nauta and Mar-a-Lago property manager Carlos de Oliveira, had argued that the release of the report would be unfairly prejudicial, an argument that the Trump team joined in on. So that's where we stand with this case and this report. But the good news is we all know now that Jack Smith is gone and hopefully soon to be forgotten. Also on the legal front, there was something else that happened over I guess it was Friday. Donald Trump appeared virtually for Judge Merchan to issue his sentencing, and issue his sentencing he did.
Sentenced for the crime of falsifying business records in the first degree. Therefore, at this time, I impose that sentence to cover all 34 counts. Sir, I wish you Godspeed as you assume your second term in office. Thank you.
Yeah, that was patronizing Juan Merchan, the judge, the corrupt judge, by the way, in the case in New York City, saying, I convict you for all 34 counts to I mean, it was really, I mean, the whole thing was just ridiculous. The case was basically discharged, which means it was a unconditional discharge, which means that Donald Trump faces no jail time. He faces no There's no, parole, or not parole, but there's no jail time. There's no house arrest. There's no fines. There's no, anything at all. There's no penalty whatsoever for these crimes. And Donald Trump himself, he's not on probation or anything at all. Donald Trump himself walks away scot-free, but he does have the idea or the label of a convicted felon around his neck, which is all that the Democrats really wanted. It was truly embarrassing and an embarrassing end to this ridiculous circus of a court case, and also a lose-lose for everybody. The Republicans are mad because Donald Trump got the felonious charge right before he took office. And the Democrats are mad because Donald Trump still gets to take office. Donald Trump himself said this is just, New York State. They need to.
And in wrapping up, Trump said that this is a great embarrassment to the state of New York. And then Jonathan pointed out this idea that Michael Colangelo left his position as a deputy or assistant attorney general at the Department of Justice to take on the mantle of a humble state prosecutor for this case. I mean, that was something that a lot of people said, well, that draws a direct connection between what's going on in New York City and what's going on at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
And we also don't have to, we also haven't forgotten about the links between Juan Merchan and his daughter and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and campaign cash. And look, the poking of the beast as the beast is about to assume the most powerful office in the land. I don't understand the thought process there, because all they've done now is they put a big target on their backs, and Donald Trump and his Justice Department and his Attorney General and his FBI and everybody else that he's going to have at his, we see the writing on the wall. We see that Joe Biden sent his own attorneys and his own minions and his own Democrat Stafford and his own Democrat allies to New York. We know he did it in Georgia. We know he's done it all over the place. Joe Biden tried to pretend that he was not interfering with these state cases when all the time they were supporting them in any way, shape, and form that they possibly could. And now Donald Trump, coming back to office, knows that and will fully investigate and will have his prosecutors prosecute. And Juan Merchan and a whole bunch of other people have basically loaded up a shotgun, and now they're standing in front of it, and they're going to spend the next 4 years waiting to see if it goes boom. So it's really, I'm not really sure what that was all about. Real quick, before we wrap it up, there's a couple of updates on Greenland. Greenland may be coming closer and closer to becoming part of the United States of America. The Prime Minister of Greenland the other day, he gave a press conference, and I know you probably don't speak Greenlandic, and if you do, well, then you won't need me to translate, but I'll translate in case you don't. The desire for independence, the desire to be in one's own house is understood by all people in the world. And that struggle from Greenland's side isn't new. It didn't just happen yesterday. It didn't happen when I gave the speech on New Year's, but things have developed in that direction for many, many years, at least for many decades. We don't want to be Danes. We don't want to be Americans. We want to be Greenlandic. And of course, it is the Greenlandic people who decide their future. And then he's asked, have you been in touch with Donald Trump? No, he says. But we are ready to talk. I think we are both ready to increase our dialogue and reach out, and therefore also talk about things that bring us together in the world. So there you go. The Prime Minister of Greenland saying we're ready to talk to Donald Trump. We haven't yet talked to Donald Trump, but we're ready to talk to Donald Trump. We're ready to bring these two countries together. J.D. Vance did the Sunday shows yesterday, and he was also asked about it. Here's what he said.
What's the deal with Greenland and the Panama Canal? Are we using or considering use of military force in any of those situations?
No, look, we don't have to use military force, Shannon. The thing that people always ignore is we already have troops in Greenland. Mm-hmm. Greenland is really important for America strategically. It has a lot of great natural resources. My friend Donald Trump Jr. was there a couple days ago, and you know what they told him? They want to be empowered to develop. The people of Greenland want to be empowered to develop the resources there. We also need to make sure that Greenland is properly cared for from an American security perspective. And frankly, the current leadership, the Danish government, has not done a good enough job of securing Greenland. I think there actually is a real opportunity here for us to take leadership to protect America's security, to ensure that those incredible natural resources are developed. And that's what Donald Trump is good at. He's good at making deals, and I think there's a deal to be made in Greenland.
Okay. So Greenland will strategically become part of the United States so that we can keep the Chinese and the Russians from using it for their ships and their shipping and their military military. And at the same time, where there's natural resources there that we can develop, which would benefit not only the United States of America, but the people of Greenland. They wouldn't have to just rely on fishing. Not that fishing's bad, but that's their number one. I think that's their only industry right now. If we can open up new industries and new ways for them to make money and boost their economy, it's a win-win-win. And that's something that we'll be, of course, following for. Speaking of win-win-win, Donald Trump has won the election. And like I said, we are 1 week away from the inauguration. We'll be live, by the way, bringing you the 47 Daily Podcast live from Washington, D.C. for the inauguration. Should be very exciting. In the meantime, don't forget, we have a second daily podcast. More information, more stuff that you can hear. We have long form interviews. Sometimes we have a lot more. We have a lot more stories from all over the the news realm, not just the stuff that deals with the 47th president of the United States. And you can download our podcast. It's called Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Wherever you get your podcasts, it's easy. Just type in Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Download, listen, and enjoy.